Good morning, comrades. You are listening to WHIV-LP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning, Comrade. And wait a minute. What are you still doing here?
Wow.
MarkAlain Dery, you're still on the show. What's going on?
How many times have you just gone straight through for a second hour? Is this another? Are we breaking GMC?
No, we've done it before. We've done it before, but like it's not common, especially in the modern era of Good Morning, Comrade, to have multi-part interviews. But I will say, well, we used to do, dude, back in the old days, in the old original days, especially when we were doing like COVID, there was a period on this, like the branding of Good Morning, Comrade, where like after COVID had started, I was doing GMCs 5 days a week for just like a Twitch and YouTube stream. And you know, it was sort of like ultimately unsustainable, I guess, because like I was working as a teacher at the same time and like doing all kinds of other stuff. But like it was my sort of like one foray into like really trying to be like, I'm gonna be a content creator or whatever, you know. It's just like it was silly and it was goofy and it was stupid or whatever, but it was fun. Like I loved the idea of like it was a little bit weird just from the perspective of, and this is something that I've sort of settled into, and sorry to like be, you know, pulling back the curtain so much because it's not something that we do so often on the show. But like one thing that I learned in that period, and also sometimes I would come in and like none of our like co-hosts or whatever would show up, is that like I can talk for an hour by myself, like I'm
jealous
or whatever.
I'm jealous.
I can do it.
I can't do it.
Well, I can do it, but I hate it. That's the thing. I would rather talk with somebody. I would rather have somebody.
I can't do it. And I can't do it, and I hate myself for not being able to do it.
No, I hate the fact, like I think I'm actually fairly good at it. I think I can actually carry an hour solo or multiple hours solo, but I don't enjoy doing it, if that makes any sense.
I
love people. I love talking to people. I love like listening to people. So like if a lot of times, and you might notice that sometimes, and this is again pulling back the curtain a little bit more than I like, that sometimes we'll have a rerun or a back episode going on GMC. And the reason for that most of the time is not because we don't have anything to say, or it's not because like nothing's going on or whatever. It's that I can't get somebody to talk to me on the radio for an hour. And so
hello.
And again, it's something I can do, but I would rather not do it.
Now you know, and I think I've already broken the record for being the guest who's been on the most anyway. So
well, Jack hasn't been on in a long time, so I mean, you're leaving him in his dust. So Jack Reno Sweeney, if you're listening, you're getting absolutely destroyed right now, pal.
So I when that happens, and you know this because I text you all the time, but like just call me. I'm happy to talk with you on the radio.
On the line, call me anytime. Dude, I've been getting into Blondie lately. I don't know why, dude. Debbie Harry is like one of the best front women ever, right?
Just front people.
Yeah.
Front people. Dude, I was alive when she first came out, man. That was kind of like she was on the forefront of like early punk rock and then new wave. And then she started kind of this whole idea. She was one of the first, like at least on the radio, kind of people who rapped. On the radio, you know, and I forget the name of the song. It'll come to me in a second. But
Blondie was revolutionary, I dare say.
Yeah.
She actually, do you still play, by the way? Do you still play?
I haven't played in a while. Like music, are you talking about?
Yeah, so I don't know if the audience knows this about you, but you are a prolific bass player in the city of New Orleans, or at least you were.
Yeah, I was. So I went to Scotland exactly a year ago. In fact, exactly a year ago, as our annual Scotland trip and whatever. And when I came back, I found myself not. So New Orleans music scene. Let me just say this, and we can go on to talk about Measles, which is far more interesting, and people are going to want to hear more. Are going to want to hear more.
This is interesting. This is the good stuff right here.
But talking about pulling back the curtain, in New Orleans, if you speak the language of music, which if you play music, especially if you play music by ear, you can pretty much there's New Orleans musicians are very polyamorous. You move from one band to the other. If you could play music by ear and you jive and vibe with the people you're playing music with, you kind of hang with them for a little while. And then there's this constant kind of shifting. That's why when you look at bands like The Strokes, because I was just at Coachella. Oh, let me tell you about my trip to Coachella, Jeff. You want to hear stories? Let me tell you about my trip to Coachella.
Let's go.
You look at like people like in Coachella or The Strokes, or you look at bands that have been around forever.
The Strokes made headlines at Coachella this year too, by the way,
because of the anti-Gaza and the anti-Israel stuff, the anti-Zionist. Mm-hmm. Is that why they did a whole series? Their last song was a whole thing of CIA, like it showed pictures of leaders around the world, and then it would be like overthrown by the CIA in 1953.
They brought up Allende, bro. They brought up Allende.
They brought up Allende in Chile. Yeah, it's getting late at night, dude. We are just so that
no, this is the morning. It's the morning.
It's the morning. Okay, of course.
We're all fresh as a daisy.
Yes. Allende, which was the first 9/11, actually, right? That was
it was September 11th.
September 11th, the overthrown of to bring in Pinochet, who's really one of life's kind of the universe's worst people, up there with Hitler and other names that we will be able to say soon enough. But the point is I don't remember what the point was. What was the point that we were making?
We were talking about music. We were talking about music in Coachella.
So I was at Coachella, and you look at these bands that all have been together forever. In New Orleans, that's not the case. Usually there's a lot of flux between bands. And I was in two bands. And when I came back from Scotland, I found myself in zero bands.
It's over, man.
One of them was because I was not a right winger, I suppose. And the other one was because bands are like sewing circles, except sewing circles are much more sophisticated and far less gossipy and far less dramatic than bands are in New Orleans. Okay, if you want drama, if you want gossip, and if you want like just pure, just unadulterated, just throw grown men into a room for 5 hours and have them drink a bunch of beer, and no drama will emerge, no gossip will emerge, and no bad behavior and words will be shared at all. So the band that shifted right and became right wingers, peace out, they could go. I did not care about them. The punk rock band that I was in, that hurt. It still hurts to this day. What day? We are like April 30th. I think on May 3rd or May 4th was when I got a text message. It hurts. Brutal. Anyway, I still play.
Really quickly. Oh, you still play? I'm sorry. Good, continue.
That's okay. Go ahead. It's okay.
So I also remember, and this was actually kind of cool, when Netroots Nation was here in New Orleans.
Right.
You were hanging out with somebody and performed with his band, who's like I would say he was like a fairly prolific, lefty
RJ
commentary for the. Yes, I'm talking about RJ Esco.
Yeah, RJ and I put together a band. That was in his.
So first off, who's RJ Esco? Because people now probably don't know who he is. Can you just say who RJ Esco is?
Yeah. So RJ Esco, I think he may have been a speechwriter for Obama, I think. And I think he also was on the Bernie campaign. RJ has a show that we have on WHIV called Zero Hour.
RJ is a good left liberal.
He also specializes on healthcare and health policy. And he has a show called The 0 Hour that we run on WHIV. RJ is an old friend, a real good lefty progressive, and also a lover of like people like myself who actually love, it's hard to say it now, who love old country music.
No, country music's great. No, dude, Johnny Cash is such a badass dude.
Of course, those were the outlaws. Country music in the early days, country music, they were pushing up against the man.
It was punk. It was rock.
It was punk. It was the punk of the time. Yes.
Yes.
And it's funny, not funny, haha, but ironic how it's now become Walmart country. Is what country music has become essentially. Is just corporatized.
When do you think that switch happened? Is it Garth Brooks? Do we blame Garth Brooks for everything?
I think
Garth Brooks kind of innocent, right?
I'm much more of a punk rock. Like if you want to talk about punk or ska, kind of like the history and the nuances, I couldn't tell you. Like I love country music. I play country music. I play upright. I play electric.
Dude, he's got a stand-up double bass guitar. It's so cool.
Yeah, in fact,
I love it.
I wonder if I could show. No, I can't show it to you. It's right behind me. I couldn't go into the nuances. I know that Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson,
Willie Nelson,
Dolly Parton, Patsy Cline,
Hank Williams
Hank. But you have to also understand that these were people that were from the South, and I don't know this for 100%. I know Elvis Presley for sure was a racist. For sure, and when you in Public Enemy's Fight the Power, there's a line that says Elvis was never a hero of mine. He was a racist and something that whatever, and that's true. Because I think in the line it was like, we put heroes on stamps and Elvis was on a stamp, but Elvis was a racist, whatever, and it's true. Like. When you think about what these country artists did in the 50s and the 60s, they were pushing up against a system that was oppressing against them. But they were not of the mindset of this sense of intersectionality where they would unite with other people that were also kind of the way in New Orleans, the way that Native Americans absorbed and really took in the African American population in something that ultimately became what we refer to here as Mardi Gras Indians, and Mardi Gras Indian kind of a culture that Jeff can talk way more about because he grew up in New Orleans. I've only been here for 21 years, but this idea where oppressed or suppressed people living in a society like New Orleans gathered together and found strength in numbers, right, with the Native American and the African Americans. But
I would just say that, like, the overarching theme of a lot of that stuff, and some people will have critiques of the Mardi Gras Indians in terms of the sort of like, oh, you're erasing indigenous culture, you're adopting indigenous culture, or whatever. But like, I think the whole point of it is that there is a sort of like togetherness and a certain sort of like commonality in who people are that sort of brings that whole thing together. And like whatever critiques you may have of some of the particularities of it are, probably legitimate, at least to some extent. But like the whole point of it, I guess you would say, is not to be like horrible to other people. It's about
that's the point that I'm making.
Yeah,
that did not happen.
The celebration.
That did not happen in country music.
No.
Like, and in fact, in the 60s and 70s, the one thing I can say is that I know, and I couldn't tell you the name, but I know the stories, and forgive me for people out there who know this. And, but there was a country music star. I don't remember his name, but he was in the late 60s, 70s, and he was a very famous country music star. And whenever he showed up to clubs in the South, he was oftentimes kicked out because when he showed up, the club owners realized he was black. He did not sound black, whatever sounding black is on the radio. He did not have a.
It also flies in the face of what music, at least in the post rock and roll sense, is supposed to be, which is like a bringing togetherness of all people. And when you have these kind of like weird points of gatekeeping, you're actually, like, I would just say you're anti-music or anti-rock and roll or anti any kind of like community.
I mean, you're racist. I mean,
yeah, no, I would say that racism is anti-rock and roll. I would say racism is anti-music and anti-community and anti-people in a sort of like, maybe I sound a little hippy dippy, like woo woo about it, but like music is supposed to be something that brings all people together, regardless of any of these other like identity markers or whatever the hell. Anyway, oh wow, what? Speaking of, where can you
tuned in? You are tuned in to 102.3 WHIV-LP-FM in New Orleans. We are community radio dedicated to human rights and social justice, WHIVFM.org. Human rights and social justice radio. We are not a radio station with a mission. We are a mission with the radio station, and that is to end all wars.
And just to sort of like talk about the epidemic that is, and a long-running epidemic that is racism, and these issues that are bringing people in and causing inequality. Another epidemic that is taking place that we had thought that we had completely and utterly eradicated.
Your segue! Wow.
I think is what we're here to talk about today.
Expertly done, done, Jeff. Although I was really enjoying the
very
music.
Clunky, very sloppy.
No. I was enjoying the music, but that was really beautifully done. Jeff, it's always a pleasure to be able to come on here and talk about the things that matter most to me. And as a physician,
which is
music, and starting a radio station. I'm an HIV doctor. I got to start a radio station called WHIV. Everybody said, don't do it. Now everybody's like, oh, that was the best branding choice you ever made. I'm like, branding? That wasn't branding.
Okay,
so three letters to choose from.
Every time I tell people, and I'm very proud to say that I am on WHIV, and people are like, what the hell are you talking about? WHIV? Did you just get assigned those call letters randomly? And I tell them the story that you're about to tell right now about WHIV, about why you named it that. Can you just talk about that? And this is why, like, when I make this sort of like when I explain it to people, they actually are like, that's freaking cool.
Right. They're like, punk rock, dude. No, I mean, so when we talk about HIV, as an infectious disease physician, all infectious diseases for the most part, and especially for those of you for all of us who lived through COVID, we recognize that infectious diseases disproportionately affect people who are poor people. And when we're talking about poverty, when we're talking about issues specifically about poverty, what we're really talking about are issues of human rights and social justice. And so when I started,
it's all connected.
It's all connected. And so
health
when
health is a signifier of class.
Health is a human right. Yes, health is so all right. So I'm going to put a pin in this right now, Jeff, and I promise you we'll get back to this. In the first hour, we talked about that second article that I wrote. That second article ends with this line. It's a call to action in which I claim that health is justice. I'm sorry, healing is justice, and justice is for all. Like, that was a line when I wrote that on the computer. I was like, and healing is justice. And I stopped. And I was like, oh my God. And justice is for all. Like, I can't tell you how
and
sincere.
Justice for all. It's like the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes. That was purposeful.
Yeah.
Healing is justice, but I put justice is for all rather than justice for all.
Sure.
I put justice is for all because I wanted to stand apart from the Pledge of Allegiance, but I definitely wanted
it's bars.
Yeah. And so, but the point that I'm making here is that I could not call the radio station Human Rights Social Justice Radio or Human Rights Radio, whatever. I had 3 letters to choose from. And when we're talking about, again, infectious diseases being a surrogate for all things human rights and social justice, especially when we're talking about class issues, when we're talking about people who are poverty in the U.S., in resource poor countries, we're talking about human rights, social justice. So I could not call it Human Rights, Social Justice, but I was able to call it WHIV because if there's one thing that I knew more than anything else in my life, when the FCC engineer who I was working with when I started the radio station, when he said to me, next week, come back to me with 5 options for call letters. And I guarantee you, your first 3 options are not going to be available. I'm like, all right. So I just went away and I didn't think about it. And the next week I came back to my regular appointment. Every Friday from 2 to 5, we would work on the application for the FCC application. This is the great Bob Dunn. Mwah, love you, Bob Dunn.
We love Bob. Bob is so funny. He's such a funny guy, by the way.
Like, who's a tremendous human being.
He's a funny dude, by the way, too. Like people don't understand how funny of a guy Bob Dunn is.
Bob Dunn is the greatest. So
shout out to Bob Dunn.
I'm going to show you Bob Dunn's I'm putting my glasses on because I'm going to show you exactly what Bob Dunn said to me. So I walk in and he's like, all right, man, do you have your call letters? I need 5 call letters from you for you to name the station. I'm like, no, I don't have 5. I have 1. He's like, 1? I told you to give me 5. I'm like, I just have 1. He's like, it's not going to be available. I'm like, all right. He's like, what is it? And he goes, and I said, WHIV. And he looked down his lenses and he gave me a look like this. And he was like, WHIV? I'm like, yeah, WHIV. And then it took him a second. It took him a beat to process it. And then once he processed it in his head, he was like, yeah, that's brilliant. Yep, I got it. Like, it took him a beat. It took him a beat. But once he nailed it, and then he's like, yeah, let me look. And he like, and he's like, it's not available. I'm sorry, it's not taken. It's available. I'm like, yeah. Reserve it. He's like, yeah. Done. And then boom, reserved it, and that was it. And I listen.
I'm picturing Bob. Okay, so I know Bob a little bit. I've met him a couple times. Great guy. He's got very funny like mannerisms and like, oh my god,
he's a boomer. He's a boomer. It's a very boomer. It's
not of my parents. He's the best boomer.
He is a boomer, and he has very boomer humor. But all I have to say is that Bob Dunn is really one of the greatest human beings. No Bob Dunn, no WHIV.
Shout out to Bob Dunn forever. We love that guy.
It's all I have to say. He hates when I say it. So you know what that makes me do? Say it even more. No,
we're gonna clip this. We're gonna clip this and send it to Bob.
No Bob Dunn, no WHIV. It was the greatest moment ever when he looked over his glasses and he was like, "Hold on, I'm gonna put my glasses on." He like looked over his glasses and he was like, WHIV? I'm like, yeah, WHIV. And then it hit him. And he smiled. And then he was like, yeah, WHIV.
Yeah.
Anyway, is that the story you tell, or?
I don't tell it in nearly as well as you did. I tell it in a little bit more of a general detail situation because I wasn't privy to all of those specifics. But whenever I sort of like explain that the whole point of it is the sort of like destigmatization dynamic and the sort of like justice dynamic that you sort of like I articulate it in a much more general way than you can because I didn't live through it, if you know what I mean.
Right. Well, I will say this, and definitely we can get to measles after this, I promise, is that...
Don't worry, folks. The measles are coming.
Yeah, I promise you. We will get to the fever and rash in a moment and the ultimate breakdown of our public health system. But what we did, and oftentimes as a joke I say inadvertently, but it was really advertently, what we did, and we being my wife and I, Liana, because she was the co-creator and she's really the brains. I am lucky to be the face behind the operations, but I don't know.
If you are the father of WHIV, then she is the mother.
Yes, she is definitely the mother of WHIV, and WHIV is the spawn of two beautiful parents. Jeff is making a joke right now.
No, I'm not. Look no further into that.
Anyway, the point that I'm making is that my wife is incredibly, and she's smart, and she knows how to run a system in terms of finances and bureaucratically. I don't know how to do any of that, but one thing that I was able to do, or we were able to do, was by calling it WHIV, we were literally able, and this is, if there's one thing, like, if and when I leave New Orleans, I will be able to leave New Orleans with one thing. Part of maturity isn't part of maturity that when you look back on your life, like you look back on your life and you stop being embarrassed for the dumb things you've done, right? Like that's like maturity is like, oh, okay, I'm not going to do these stupid things when I was 30 or 40 or 50, whatever. But I look back, and the one thing that I can say I'm so proud of is that we gave birth to WHIV in the city of New Orleans, and we have redefined the word HIV. Because, Jeff, as you know, somebody who's born and raised in New Orleans, we drop the letters of a radio station. So WWOZ becomes OZ, or KTUL, or W. Oh my God, sorry, WTUL. WTUL becomes TUL, or WXDR becomes XR, or whatever, or WWNO becomes NO. Well, WHIV has become HIV. And how do you destigmatize a word? By saying it over and over again, right? If you just say WHIV, 4 times an hour. By the way, if you're tuned in, you are listening to 102.3 WHIV LPFM in New Orleans, community radio dedicated to human rights, social justice, WHIVFM.org. We are not a radio station with a mission. We are a mission with the radio station. When you say that 4 times an hour, every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month, 12 months a year, blah, 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 times 11 years, HIV becomes destigmatized. And to a large degree, we've destigmatized the word HIV because WHIV exists in this city. So anyway.
And what it also does bring the opportunity who are not familiar about HIV is a teachable moment. It is a moment to teach about like somebody, like, I can't tell you how many times I've said, yeah, my show's on WHIV. And by the way, like Good Morning Comrade is on multiple platforms. It's on this space. It's on YouTube. It's on Twitch. It's on podcasts. It's on whatever, right? You can find that by going to goodmorningcomrade.com if you were interested in finding any of those things. But like what I always tell people is that you can the primary base and place where you can find this program is WHIV 102.3 in New Orleans. And the first thing people always ask me is, WHIV, what the hell are you talking about? And that provides for me a teachable moment to say exactly what you described here. Speaking of teachable moments right now, we are in the midst of something that is a broadly teachable moment about we thought it was an epidemic that was no longer something that we had to worry about, but unfortunately it's back. And now is an opportunity to teach and learn about the measles.
Right. So like right now, so we ended the last hour on 2 points, and so let's start on those 2 points now, because I think they would give us a great launching pad to kind of move forward. So it's becoming clear, and this is something that I've talked about here on Good Morning Comrade for the 8, 9, 10, 11 times I've been on air.
For 7 years. You've been coming on the show for 7 years. Let's just put 7
years. Okay. And the things that I've been talking about, and again, I'm not a Nostradamus or anything, but I just pay attention.
You don't need to be one.
You don't need to be Nostradamus. Like, it's like, it's like Martin Luther King, Dr. King once said that a budget was basically a moral document, right? So I'm going to paraphrase Dr. King's statement and just say that, like, your plans, let's just say in this case public health plans, or your intentions, in this case public health, is akin to a moral document. So utilizing Dr. King's notion of a budget is a moral document, I'm going to talk about now, and what I've been talking about over the course of 7 years is the same thing. I've been talking about WHIV on WBOK in New Orleans. I've been talking about it, all of the podcasters, Majority Report, and Wajid Ali.
And it's only 7 years on Good Morning Comrade. You've been on radio for way longer than that.
For 11 years. Mm-hmm. And it's is that if we think about Jenga games, and I talk about this all the time, so forgive me if you've heard this analogy, but if you look at different sectors of American life, so education, banking, finance, healthcare, public health, help me out, Jeff, like unions, labor, like whatever the case may be, arts, mm-hmm. Look at the education, but look what's happening in the DC, the Kennedy Center. Oh, sorry, not the Kennedy Center. Sorry, my bad.
The Trump Kennedy Center?
Kennedy Center. Like, I don't want to, like, I don't want anybody to come after me.
The lawyers are coming.
Right. When you look at those entities, right, and we're going to specifically look at the healthcare and the public healthcare in a moment. But when you look at all those Jenga buildings and those structures, all they're doing is they're just removing blocks. They're removing blocks. And Naomi Klein, exactly a year ago, on April 17th, because I know that because it was my birthday. So go back to The Guardian. Naomi Klein.
Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. She was on the Majority Report. She warmed the stage for me on the Majority Report last April 17th. Love you, Naomi
Wait,
Klein.
You were on the Majority Report on your birthday?
Yeah, last year.
You didn't tell me that. I knew you were on the Majority Report.
Yeah, it was my birthday. That was my birthday. That was my birthday. Yeah,
Anyway,
I went to New York. I went to New York to go see Nick Cave for my birthday, and I went to go to Democracy Now!
You got to hang out with Emma Vigeland, too?
I got to hang out with Emma. It was great. And it was funny because I was still deep in the Jank and Francesca and
drama.
And, all that drama. And so I was just, she was very sweet. And she, obviously, that's not what we talked about, but all I had to say was like, tell Francesca she's the bomb. I was about to drop an F word. She's the bomb. And Emma was like, she was so gracious. They were great. Everybody there. And I can't tell you, those studios are huge. It's the biggest studio you've ever seen. There's so much there.
Tremendous studio, big studio, gold everywhere.
It is the size. Anyway, it is lovely. They were great. Everybody was wonderful. Anyway, I obviously love them. So listen, the whole point is this, is that prior to me coming on, is that Naomi Klein was talking about something called viral collapse. And when she said it, as I was sitting there listening to her before I was coming on, when she said that to me crystallized everything. And what she was talking about was this notion of how this is a year ago, right? Is that it was already obvious for 3 or 4 months that the Trump administration had already been in place because Doge was happening and Musk was doing his thing and all that stuff.
This was when the Trump administration was still like had the brand new car smell. You know what I mean?
Well, not only that, but they also had that muscle. And let me ask you this, Jeff.
Wait. I actually don't know this because I don't remember when the 12-day war was. But was this before or after we had that 12-day war with Iran? I think it was slightly before, right?
I think it was before. I think they did it in the summer.
It was in June or something, right?
I think it was in the summer.
Yeah, June 13th through the 24th.
Yeah. So, but let me ask you this. Do you feel as though that they are losing their strength, the
Trump administration?
Yes, that that fear. Like last year, we were a little bit more like, this.
I mean, I would say that there's some component to it that is almost like, yeah, maybe they have sort of like lost a little bit of their fastball or whatever because they're not like coming. Yeah, they're not coming as hard with so many things at the same time as much. But I mean, at the same time, they also did just start a war with Iran. They can't they can
excursion
do bigger things. They were able to sort of like kidnap the leader of Venezuela, whether you love him or lump him, at the beginning of the year. So like I do think that sort of the political support of what was happening at the beginning of the Trump campaign or the Trump term 1 or term 2 rather. Is
well. Let me ask you this. Let me
just finish. I think like what they're able to do in terms of like having popular support on their side has fallen off, but that doesn't necessarily translate to their ability to do insane things, like regardless of that public support. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. But I guess what I'm asking is two things. One is, I think that the initial fear for the gross fascism and authoritarianism that we thought was coming, I just don't feel like that same fear is there, because I think that what we have seen is that popular, like people in the streets, and when people punch back, like the King of England, I can't even believe I'm saying this. The King of England was here yesterday, and in his speech to the Congress, punched back in a way that was so effective, right?
King Charles, welcome to the resistance.
Right. And when you see somebody like Zelensky punch back, when you see, and it's landing, right? So then let me ask you this then. What did you think on Saturday night when you got the text alerts on your phone that there was a potential shooter at the White House Correspondents' Dinner? What was your first thought?
So let me just tell you where I was at. First off, I was at a event supporting workers, so I was like literally working when I saw it. I was watching the Knicks game with some of my coworkers, and then I just sort of like looked at my phone, and I was just like, "Well, that can't be good," like literally just that. But also like as details rolled out, I was also like cognizant of. So this is one of the fun things about Trump, and I swear to God, this is the joke of this episode, is that we're going to talk about the measles later. But like, I swear to God, I like was thinking back to like the last couple of Trump like assassination attempts, and I thought to myself like, well, I guess those things did matter for like a day, and then all of a sudden nobody cared. And the same exact thing happened. In fact, it was even less. It was so non an event that it was so not like it's such a not event that like some guys didn't even put down their salad forks.
Yeah, that's true. And like they just were filming. They were just like eating, drinking their wine.
Oh God,
and
what was it? Filming. There was like a one. I can't remember who it is. I'm very bad with a lot of these. Like I can't keep track with all the like Mar-a-Lago face ladies out there. But there was one of them that was like up. She did like a selfie and was like, "The shooter's dead. Guess we're gonna keep partying or whatever." And then there was another one, and I can't remember any of these people. Again, this is not like. You don't come to Good Morning Comment for straight news. You come to Good Morning Comment for commentary, for laughs, and for fun. All right. But there was a woman who was one of these people whose name, Olivia Reingold. That's the one. Olivia Reingold. She was like doing, she like started like a Facebook Live or like some kind of a like live stream of the event where she was not videoing the event that was happening. She was videoing herself as it took place, which is so indicative of this sort of like narcissism of this sort of like the modern Versailles, the modern.
No, dude, this is end stage capitalism. This is end stage capitalism. This is the decay. Funny. This is the decline of the collapse of our society. It's end stage capitalism, is what it is. But let me ask you this: did you think it was fake? I'm not saying you think it's fake now. Did you? No. What was your initial gestalt?
At no point did it cross my mind that it was fake. The funniest thing about that, I didn't think it was fake. I was just like, okay, fine, sure. Somebody tried to kill Trump. I hate Trump. I can understand that or whatever. Like, I would never do that. Obviously, it's too adventurous or whatever. But like, the funniest thing about that, and this is like I think I kind of answered your question there, but I want to take it a different way, right? So we discussed this in the last hour, and people at home, drinking, playing the drinking game of every time you mention Hassan Piker, take a drink. But like for the past month, people have been talking about this guy as though he is the most dangerous stochastic terrorist up in the
Democrats.
Country. Democrats and Republicans are both doing it. On Fox News, you have his face in a crosshair, like 24/7. and then when you find out that this guy who like flew across the country, did a Naruto he took a train across the country. He did a Naruto run through the metal detector to try and like get a shotgun shot, which is not what you would do at range, because shotguns, especially with buckshot spread out instead of go long range, like this freaking moron that tried to do this is a like radical centrist, like bulwark watcher or whatever. And I'm just like, you've been saying that this guy, Hassan Piker, this one dude who like talked about blowback, and he just happened to do it in a somewhat inarticulate way by saying like, quote unquote, America deserved 9/11, is a method, as a hook to describe like imperial blowback, the imperial boomerang that we just talked about in our last hour.
9/11 is a perfect example of not a perfect. Yes, it's a perfect example of blowback. 100%.
But regardless, like you're talking about this person, this guy, as though he's the most dangerous person in the world, and the people who are politically aligned with the people that are saying that this guy is the most dangerous person in the world tries to kill the president of the United States.
No,
we live in a comedy, bro. We live in a comedy.
Yeah,
it's so crazy. It's a Mel Brooks movie.
My sense is that they knew that something was going to happen, and they purposely allowed it to happen. So there are these different levels of securities. Like you have a Seer 1, Seer 2, Seer 4, Seer 5, like Mardi Gras, for example, or Mardi Gras is a Seer 2. Super Bowl is like a Seer 1. There are these different levels that people that the not Social Security, Special Security. What am I thinking of? Secret Security or whatever. Secret Service are they are able to rank these levels of these events.
It's tiers.
There's tiers, right? So again, Mardi Gras is like a Seer 2. Super Bowl is a Seer 1. Just to give you an idea, this was like a Seer who knows what, but it was not a Seer 1.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a Seer 1. That's the whole point. It was not considered. And you have to ask yourself, well, why in the past, if that's what they were and they weren't now? That's one. And two, I strongly believe, like, and listen, we don't have to go into this, and I really want to talk about measles because I know like 20 minutes left.
We have to do part 3.
Right. Like, I'm not trying to set you up for a part 3. All right. But the bottom line is that I think what came out of that buckshot was measles virus.
Super last thing. I have to tell one super last anecdote in the last 15 minutes. The last quarter, we can get into measles stuff, okay? This is a funny story. One time when I was working for a union, a different union than I want to work for now, and I'm not going to be any more specific than that, I was on assignment in Washington, D.C. in April. And I booked a hotel through the hotel service at the Washington Hilton. Little did I know.
They call it the Hinckley Hilton, right?
The Hinckley Hilton. Little did I know that the day that I checked in...
Was that the Washington's Correspondence?
It was the day of the Washington Correspondence Center. So, like, I'm walking around...
What year?
This was under Biden. This was like 20...
Was it the Michelle... No, wasn't Michelle Wolf?
That was Trump. This was under Biden. This was a very uneventful.
Michelle Wolf.
It was one of the craziest things I'd ever seen because, like, literally, I went to the dispensary to like get some weed and got high. Come back to my hotel and there's a protest in front of my hotel. I'm just like, what? DC is an insane city. What is going on? Why are people protesting? Like Medea Benjamin was there.
Really? No.
Yes,
really?
The goat.
Pink, right?
The goat was there.
Pink,
yes.
Right?
And I'm just sort of like, yeah. And I'm literally wearing my like.
Did you join in or?
Well, I was wearing a work shirt. I was wearing a union shirt for the union that I represented. It was purple. Guess put it together. But like, I'm just sort of like, yeah, down with the United States military machine as well. And also, like, I had to show my room key to the guard at the door to be like,
that was very union of you.
Down with the machine, and also like, let me in, please. But no, and I'm just sort of like, man, this is one of the craziest things I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
Before we talk about the measles, we are on the radio. Which station are we on, MarkAlain?
You are tuned in to 102.3 WHIV FM LP in New Orleans. We are community radio dedicated to human rights and social justice. WHIVFM.org. We honor independent voices. We are not a radio station with a mission. We are a mission with a radio station. And that is to end the freaking Iran war.
And all others.
No more bombing of schools and schoolgirls. No more bombing of innocents. We honor independent voices. We're not a radio station with a mission. We are a mission with a radio station. And that's to stop Zionistic Israel with their bombings of Gaza and Lebanon. And we do not care. Put Netanyahu in jail already, please, and stop these wars. I go to
what is something that wars spread, not just death, destruction, but also what?
And this is why Jeff has been on the radio for 7 years, because he's an expert broadcaster. So here we are going to segue into measles.
We're talking about disease, baby.
Infrastructure collapse. And so wars spread, infrastructure collapse, diseases, guns, germs, steel. It's a great book that talk about all this. All right. So in the last 15 minutes, Jeff, let me tell you about how we ended the last hour. And that was in the last week.
You better hurry up or we're going to have to do another one.
I hope you have more apple juice. The last week, the U.S. experienced two huge, something that I think we're going to look back on and be able to be like, yep, that was something. And the two things that happened in the last week, I think, are so relevant. Number one was that the CDC purposely, and by the CDC, I'm not talking about the rank and file CDC people. The rank and file CDC people created this piece of scientific data. The paper that I'm about to explain to you right now on COVID vaccines. But it was the CDC leadership that blocked the distribution of this paper. So every week there's something called the MMWR that's released. Geeks like me read it every week. In fact, I spend the entirety of my week reading articles from the MMWR. And the MMWR stands for the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. So that's just basically the
sounds CDC. Like a lot of fun stuff to talk about over coffee.
Geek. I am a nerd. I'm a nerd. And so when I make fun of other nerds,
we're gonna flush your head in the toilet, pal.
Yes, you could do that. But the MMWR is essentially a weekly update on what's going on in the country. Like, oh, you have backyard chickens. Well, guess what? There's a multi-drug resistant salmonella spreading amongst backyard chickens. Oh, you went to a picnic. Well, guess what? There's a Shigella organism that's transmitting right now. And so in this MMWR, and it's the publication of CDC workers. So if you work for the CDC, the MMWR is the guaranteed place that you're going to be able to put your work in, so to make sure that it's published and it's out there for the public. Because if you think about it, the CDC runs on public funds. Therefore, the public should know what its money is doing and how it's helping the American people. Well, last week, a paper was slated to be released that was looking at the 2025 COVID vaccine efficacy. And guess what, folks? Across all age groups, the 2025 updated COVID vaccine had a 50% reduction. So if you were a person who got the COVID vaccine, you had a 50% reduction, less likelihood of being admitted to the hospital for COVID than somebody that didn't get the vaccine.
Does Sam Cedar's ex-co-host know this?
I don't know. Yes, I'm aware of it, but that's why I held it, because I have a worm in my brain.
Beef tallow. You get some beef tallow. That'll fix it.
I need to dissect squirrel penis. That's what the MMWR needs to have. What's that?
I actually like beef tallow, and I think beef tallow is great for cooking. And I think that like Robert Kennedy Jr. is giving beef tallow a bad name.
It should have a bad name. and let me just say this, because the people who drink a lot of that beef tallow stuff, I will say this, and also bias, I am a lifelong vegetarian, okay? People who eat a lot of beef tallow, what is beef tallow? Beef tallow is basically bone marrow. Mm-hmm. What is made in bone marrow? Your immune system, white blood cells. So what happens is that you consume the immunity and white blood cells of another mammal. Mm-hmm. So while it may taste good and it may be good, but your labs and people who drink a lot of that stuff, their labs are completely effed up. They have white cells are not compatible with human life because they're drinking and they are consuming. And I'm not saying the white blood cells interfere with their human physiology, but it is the white blood cells of another mammal that you can measure on a lab. And I can always tell when people are drinking beef tallow because when I look at their labs, I'm like,
no, I'm not talking about drinking it. I'm just talking about using it in cooking.
Okay, well, there are people who drink it as soup or broth or whatever.
Ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Okay, but also, I'm also not anti-seed oils too, by the way. Like, that's crazy. The anti-seed oils are fine. Crazy.
Yeah, the anti. Anyway, so anyway,
measles.
As I was saying,
we got to talk about the measles, don't we?
Right. You're forcing me to come back for a third hour. Okay. So all right. So the point that I'm making is this: is that the CDC leadership, in this case, RFK Jr., actually blocked the publication of this document. In this document, it actually showed that there was a 50% reduction in hospitalizations for people who got the COVID vaccine. Now, if you are a person who cares, like me, I'm going to get a COVID vaccine every year, period, regardless. I'm a COVID doctor. I'm an infectious disease doctor. I believe in vaccines. I get vaccinated live on TV. I vaccinate people live on TV.
I hate getting shots, and I will get the vaccine every year. I hate it. I feel like I get sick every year after I get the COVID vaccine.
Well, of course you get sick. You know why you get sick, Jeff? You get sick because what's happening is that you get injected what's called the viral antigen. The antigen is what the immune system responds to. So what you are feeling is your immune response. Yeah. Yes.
So that's the point. It literally is the point of a vaccination.
The point. And my people who have HIV, especially those people who have what we used to refer to as AIDS, we don't call it AIDS anymore. We refer to it as end-stage HIV. But for these people who have end-stage HIV, I'd be like, yo, dude, you want to feel your immune system? And they're like, yeah, man, I want to feel my immune system. Let me vaccinate you for flu. Like, okay, dude.
It's very punk rock, by the way. That's very punk rock.
And then they feel, and then they get, and they're like, they feel their immune system, and they're like, oh man, that was good, because it made them feel sick. You know why? Because your immune system makes you feel sick, and that actually goes to speak to a much a different philosophical issue is what does feeling sick mean? Because oftentimes being sick is actually your immune system responding to a bacterial or viral or fungal antigen. But it's a different story, something we can talk about later. So the first thing I want to talk about is this, is that we've reached a new low in American public health. And that is we are now, in fact, I gave a lecture last week to a statewide Louisiana lecture. It was the entire state of school health nurses and school administrators. And what I was there to talk about was measles, of course. And one of the things that I got a question back, which was, Dr. Dery, can you talk to us about what the current morbidity and mortality of our current measles outbreaks are? And you know what I said to them? And this article, this notion, this whistleblower had just come out the day before. And I was like, I can't. You know why? Because they're not telling us. We don't know right now. We don't know what the actual effects of measles are in the U.S. because we're not being told that. Right? We don't know what's going on with bird flu. Remember with Biden, bird flu was in the news all the time. I was coming on here on Good Morning Comrade talking about how bird flu is everywhere. We don't know because we're not seeing that information.
We literally don't have the data.
We don't know about the COVID vaccines because what we know now is that it's purposely being withheld from us. Now, when I talked about the measles, not knowing about current data, when I talked about the bird flu, I speculated. Okay. But now about this COVID vaccine, holding back 50% of hospitalizations, we now know that with specificity because of whistleblowers. Let me also tell you about the second thing that I think is relevant. The second thing that is relevant is that in the state of Utah, they are holding back. They are giving vaccines. So in for toddlers, for newborns, for the first 6 months of a newborn's life, they have their mom's MMR vaccines, their measles, mumps, rubella antibodies circulating. So at 6 months, you are protected. After 6 months, you are vulnerable. The sweet spot to get long-term immunity is to give a vaccine at 12 months. That means between 6 months and 12 months, you are vulnerable. You have to really protect a baby at that point, a child at that point, because if they are exposed to measles, they're likely to get it. And terrible, terrible things happen to babies with measles. I'm not going to talk about it. So, but what we as a society, we as a scientific society have agreed to is that we vaccinate at 12 months. Okay. That offers the most long-lasting vaccine protection. But what we are seeing now in Utah, the Utah healthcare practitioners, because there's so much measles in Utah, is that they are now vaccinating people, kids at 6 months. They are saying, we don't care about what happens later. We do, obviously, but we'll deal with that later. But we are so concerned about encephalitis and blindness and deafness that happens as a result of long-term measles infection, subacute sclerosing panencephalitis. We don't want that to happen. We are going to start vaccinating at 6 months. So the two huge things that happen, bro, is that we are now withholding data, and we are now starting to use vaccination schedules that we see in resource-poor countries. And let me then just end with this piece of information that just was released yesterday, is that there's a war in Sudan, and people in Sudan are clustering into Chad, into eastern Chad. And when you are looking at oh my goodness, in camps, the refugee camps, forgive me, refugee camps that people are living in from Sudan that are in Chad. In January, there were a measles outbreak. Okay, now in April, coming into May, we're seeing a meningococcal outbreak. So measles is
meningitis.
Yes, meningitis. So measles is a virus, and of course, got it. Yeah, and meningitis. And so what we are seeing is a bacterial infection that is. So let me just start over again. So we're having a measles outbreak in these refugee camps, and then after these measles outbreaks, 3 or 4 months later, in the same individuals that survived measles, we're seeing a meningitis outbreak. So meningitis is a bacterial infection. So one of the things that we have to remember is that measles causes something called immune amnesia. Immune amnesia means is that if you get measles and you survive measles, it wipes away your previous immunity. So these children who are
antibodies don't exist, essentially.
They wipe away the antibodies that previously protected a child from anything. They were vaccinated, if they were exposed to whatever. So they are now living with a brand new, clean slate of immunity. And right now, we saw a measles outbreak in January, and now we're seeing a meningococcal outbreak with the same people who had measles. It's absolutely showing immune amnesia right in front of us. And so what we are seeing is devastation. I know we need to wrap, Jeff. So we
got to jump.
All right.
We're going to have to talk real soon, but thanks for listening to Good Morning Comrade. The BHIP.
Love you.
Thank you. Love you, Mark Allen. Love you,
Peace
listeners. Bye-bye.
Sorry, bro.